Welcome to Impact Innovations, where bold ideas meet real-world solutions. Join our host, Dr. Angela Gustus, as she dives in deep with thought leaders, change agents, and innovators who are making waves and moving mountains. So buckle up. Let's get ready to laugh, be inspired, and make an impact together. Today's guest is Ellen Platt, founder of the Option Group, LLC, where she helps families navigate the often confusing world of healthcare. With over 35 years of experience as a certified rehabilitation counselor and aging life care manager, Ellen guides children, adults, and seniors through chronic conditions, disabilities, and life transitions, creating personalized care plans, providing advocacy, and offering ongoing support. Her work helps families feel confident, supported, and prepared, promoting independence and quality of life across Maryland, Delaware, and Pennsylvania.
Well, thank you for that intro. I really appreciate you. Ellen, thank you for being willing to come and sit and chat with me today. Welcome to Impact Innovations.
Thank you, Angela.
I am so excited. I was talking earlier about you, and the story of how you started your organization and where you are and what you're doing, it's so inspirational and it's so awesome. So having you here and being able to talk through what that journey's been like, good, bad, and ugly, how you got started, all those wonderful things, I just feel like it's going to be great feedback for other, future entrepreneurs or entrepreneurs that are trying to do their thing. So I'm really excited to get started. So I'm just going to kind of just jump right in. So way before Options Group, how did you decide? Like, where did this come from? How did this all start?
Wow. Way back as a kid, I was always geared towards people. I was always connecting people, and I was the one that my friends went to solve their problems. And I just felt like I'd liked that. I liked helping people and doing that kind of thing. So I went and got my undergrad in psychology. But what do you do with that? You really need to go on.
Yes.
So I ended up moving to Pittsburgh at the time, and I got a job doing case management for a company that helped people that had catastrophic injuries. So I got into case management. It was a little bit interesting, and the standard at the time was a master's. So I ended up, while I was in Pittsburgh, I went to Pitt and got my master's in physical medicine and rehabilitation, so rehabilitation counseling. And I worked with families, kind of a liaison between people who had catastrophic injuries, the insurance companies, the attorneys, the families, the injured person themselves, and just help them reclaim their life as best as they could. And they started, moving on with their life, whatever that looked like for them. And I realized over time, a lot of it was getting really litigious. And I felt like the industry was changing a little bit, and a lot of my time was spent just testifying.
Oh, wow.
And I was good at it, but I didn't enjoy it. I didn't love it, and realized that there was this set of the population, people that had aging families and parents with dementia and people who just needed help navigating longevity, whatever that looks like, whether it's, somebody in the hospital or somebody that has dementia, somebody that's had a catastrophic injury, but wasn't in so much in the litigious world. And I just started my own practice. So I had been doing case management at that point about 20 years.
Oh, wow.
And thought, you know what? I've been doing this long enough that I think it's time to jump out there and do it on my own and really focus on this aging population that I was really enjoying. My grandfather lived, he passed 3 months shy of his 100th birthday.
Wow.
I have a lot of really great longevity of really active people living a long time in my life.
That's awesome.
Yep, in my family. And so I just like working with that population. So I kind of moved a little bit and started my own business. And now this is our 15th year.
Congratulations.
Yeah. So I haven't looked back. I really enjoy that entrepreneurial aspect of it.
It's amazing that you went from working for someone, doing it on your own, but how did you get from starting your own practice and growing it to what it is now? I know that you started really grassroots and doing this work. Tell us a little bit about that part of the journey, because, one of the things I often talk about, it's one thing to manage yourself, right? But then when you start managing other people as you grow your business, that's a whole different side of business.
It is.
Tell us a little bit about, what was that journey in the initial years, and when did you decide to actually bring other people in?
Yeah. So it started out just me. I was either going to see clients, I was driving my car, or sitting behind my computer. So my office was mostly in my car, but it was also in my house. I felt like I lived on the road. But, I just realized that I need a little bit of support administratively. I'm out seeing people. I needed somebody to answer the phone because it was starting to get busy, and I might have reports or letters or things that need to be written. So I would dictate my letters or my reports from the road, and I would send them to the first person that I hired, who is still with me today.
Oh, wow.
And she's now full-time VP of operations. She just started out as part-time admin way back when. So as I grew, she grew. And that I realized that there was only so much that I could do. When I started, I would tell her, I don't want to hire. I don't want to manage people. If I just have, a couple of hours a day that I'm billing and helping people, I'm good with that. And of course, that went very quickly. And I wish I only had a couple of hours that I didn't have to bill, because just got incredibly busy. So Michelle is great. She is my right arm. She is actually me and everything I was doing 8 years ago.
Oh, wow.
So I was doing the invoicing and the marketing and the HR kind of stuff. So she's taken over the invoicing completely and actually has helped herself with that because it's grown to such a big thing. The HR has become a much bigger, when I was doing it, we had 5 people. She's doing it, we have 16. So
wow.
And we're in 5 states, so we have different state laws to deal with and stuff like that.
I did not know you were in 5 states. What states are you in?
So we're in Maryland, Delaware, Pennsylvania, D.C., if you count that as state, and a little bit into Northern Virginia.
Very cool.
And that actually happened during COVID. I wasn't really planning to do it, but I had some colleagues that were just a little bit older, sole practitioners, and when the shutdown happened, they just decided it was time to retire.
Wow.
They didn't know what it was going to look like. They didn't know if they even wanted to get into it. And if you remember how things were back then, our clients were in a home and afraid to be around people, or they were in a facility and we were locked out and they were locked in. And it was really difficult to be an advocate for somebody who's not communicative inside of a facility that you can't get into.
Wow.
So we learned to be creative and figure out how we can work around COVID, and we did, and we thrived. And we had the ability to acquire some practices in other states.
Wow. I'm excited to dig into that because, that's an area that a lot of practitioners don't think about, is like how to actually acquire other practices. So we're going to come back to that. But the thing I think is really interesting that I want to point out, oftentimes when folks are doing the work, whether it's in case management or in behavioral health, the thought of growth with an admin add-on typically is not the first route for growth. They are thinking, okay, if we're going to grow, I want to bring on other therapists, or I want to bring on other case managers, because that's tied to money, right? It's a little bit harder to bring on an admin person. So how did you, so I heard you say that you didn't want to have to manage people and handle other people. So I'm sure that played a part in that decision, but really focusing on the idea that I need help from an administrative perspective. Was there a defining moment or something that just sort of said, maybe I need some help getting out there? Is there anything that you can think of? And I ask that question because I feel like other people having that question in their head or that thing in their head, oh, okay, so when I get to this, I may want to reconsider having admin staff. So was there a thing?
I think for me, it was more that I was spending more time on the road than I was in the office. And I felt the work that we do, we get people who are calling mostly at the worst time in their life. And it was really hard for me to say, that's okay, the answering machine can pick it up.
Okay.
So they needed somebody. They needed like a human being on the end of the phone. And since I was on the road, I felt like I needed somebody to be there.
Okay.
To answer the phone, to walk them through, to usher them into the process, and help them understand how we can help and that there is a light at the end of the tunnel, that we can, in fact, help with the problem that they're coming with. So Michelle came on and was answering the phone and doing administrative stuff, and it freed me up to do more of what I was doing in the field. But it did get to the point where I needed somebody to help me with the field work. Whether it's going to visit clients or making phone calls and coordinating resources. And so my next hire was a young lady who was just graduating with her undergrad degree in psychology and wanted to go on for social work. And she says, I think I want to do what you do, but I want to understand more. So we met up, and as she was finishing school, she was working with me part-time, which was great because you know, it was kind of scary, and I think a lot of entrepreneurs could deal with this, understand this, that when you're looking to hire that first person, oh my gosh, can I afford them? Can I keep them on, you know, ongoing? Or is this just a part-time thing? Or is it just a temporary thing? And so her coming on part-time, and then she graduated school and she could take on more hours. It ended up being a perfect scenario for me. And she was able to do some of the lower level stuff, and it was doing it under my direction. But she was able to be in other places when I couldn't be there.
And that makes a lot of sense. That makes a whole lot of sense. So have you always thought of yourself as an entrepreneur? Like being an entrepreneur, was that something that was sort of in the back of your brain even when you were in school, or was this something that just sort of happened? I love that you're laughing before I even finish the question.
I was the kid with the lemonade stand at one point.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, we lived in a little neighborhood, and that was always kind of a fun thing that we would do. But I don't know that I considered myself an entrepreneur, but once I started doing it on my own, I'm like, I know what I'm doing. Like technically I was good. I knew my craft, but there was a learning curve with just the business, like knowing your numbers and understanding how to read them and anticipate and forecast and things like that. So that was something that I had to learn.
So did you have a mentor that sort of helped you through the business acumen side of your work?
Yeah. Over time I got involved in a business roundtable.
Oh, cool.
Where I had a mentor. Vistage was the name of that group. I have a mentor who's a retired businessman. He had a business for over 25 years and sold it. So he went from beginning to end.
Wow.
Lots of good experience. And I'm in the same room with 9 other businesses, different businesses. But when you think about it, we all are dealing with the same issues of
absolutely
finances and human resources and hiring and firing and, you know, forecasting and regulation and legal stuff. I mean, you could go on and on that we're all dealing with the same kind of thing. So it's really great to be in a room with other people who are doing, you know, in the same journey in a different way, but they all have experiences. And what I found, it was really interesting that they would ask questions to better understand what I do. But then it would be a light bulb moment for me because I hadn't thought of it that way. I'm coming from a different perspective, looking at it through their eyes. I'm like, I never thought of it that way because I'm in the woods, I'm in the trees, and never stepped back to look at it the way that they were looking at it. So it was really enlightening.
And that, I think you bring such a great point. And that's something that I've had to learn, that initially when I first started, you know, when Kathy and I first started CMAG, we were trying to connect with other, you know, consultants, because we started doing consulting work before we got into healthcare, and, you know, trying to find other people that were doing what we did to look at, you know, those kinds of relationships, but quickly understood you can be selling shoes and we have very relatable experiences. And I always jokingly say, like, you don't own a business until you're stressed about payroll. That's just real. Like, I don't know. I've never heard of a business that has not had a moment at some point in time where it's like, oh yeah, please pay your invoice. Please pay your invoice. And so, but with that said, you, as you said, you have 16 people. In 15 years, you've grown significantly. You have a beautiful office. I loved your office. One of the things one of my mentors said to me was, be prepared for the explosion, right? And, what has that journey been like as you've grown so significantly over these last couple of years? And, were there challenges with that kind of growth? And, how did it change who you are in the business, and what was that like? Because I'm guessing you're not really doing a whole lot of case management anymore. So like, what is that growth felt like, I guess?
Yeah. So I think the biggest growth spurt, I guess, right around the time of the COVID shutdown, there were 10 people working out of my basement. I called it the dungeon where people would go down, but people wanted to be together. My staff thrives on collaboration. Okay. So when the shutdown happened, we just had the core people in the office, and everybody was working out of their house or going to see clients. If you needed a file, you would stop by and we'd have it sitting out on the back, the front porch for you and stuff. But as regulations lightened up and people were getting back together, I was finding everybody was coming to the office because they wanted to be together. We were still trying to be a little bit separate. And I had my office up in a little nook in my bedroom upstairs, and then we had the rest of them in the basement downstairs. And I'd come down for a cup of coffee, and there'd be somebody sitting at my dining room table, and somebody at my kitchen table, and somebody on my back deck. And I decided, it worked great. Everybody wanted to be together, though, and felt like I had been looking for space before the shutdown, kind of put that on pause until I really knew what we were looking at. And then I was one of those people in the middle of a pandemic who actually signed a lease, which, I'd look back and think, wow, that was a lot going on at that time. Yeah. But this space was great. It allowed everybody to have their own separate space. They could close the door, take their mask off, do a Zoom, come and go, and everybody felt comfortable and safe because we took precautions, took temperatures when you walked in the office, and probably remember those days. But the great thing was that we had really good conference space, that my whole team could be in one room and everybody was 6 feet apart.
Very cool.
And so we were able to keep people together and keep them connected and still do the great work that we do and still collaborate and not feel totally out there.
And that makes a lot of sense to move forward with getting space so that you could allow more people to work and be able to be in the same space together. I can't imagine having people in my house like that. I'm just being honest. When we worked out of the house, we didn't have any other staff that worked for us, and we had other space we used for when we met with clients. We had a handful of clients that came to the house, but they were typically people we knew relatively well or had been working with for a while, and it just didn't make sense. And we had a space where we could meet with folks. But yeah, I'm sure it was nice to get your house back.
Well, I do have to say they were very respectful. Everybody was great, and it did have a family feel. I mean, I would have our Christmas party at my house, and I would cook dinner for everybody and bring a massage therapist, and I do things to kind of help my team feel not only connected but appreciated.
Well, that's why you have people that have been working with you for years and years and years, because you make sure that you take care of them, which is awesome. And so keeping that family feel, and, that's a thing in itself, right? Because you want, and I think those of us that come from a case management, like I have a background in behavioral health and case management as well. And at your core, that's just who you are. I don't care, who you grow into and things of that sort from a business perspective. I'm still a case manager at heart. I'm still thinking about meeting people where they are and helping people on their goals and all that kind of stuff. And I know I had a very, I would say, defining moment in my career when I realized I needed to stop being a case manager to my staff. So have you had that? Did you ever have that aha moment where you're like, okay, wait a minute. I can't case manage you because you work here. If you need that kind of support, that maybe we need to rethink how this is sort of working.
Yeah, I think I always kept those boundaries from the beginning. Didn't feel like I was so much case managing them. We do give a lot of flexibility to kind of allow them. I have one case manager who's taking care of her own aging mother.
Oh, wow.
And she wants to be there and available. I get it.
Yeah.
I get it. And so we have that flexibility that if she has to be with her mother, take her to an appointment, she knows that she can just make up the time, do a report 9 o'clock at night if she wants to. And so there's a lot of give and take. We meet together on a regular basis as a team, but also as a case management team. We do peer review. We share resources. We help solve issues. If you have a tricky case, you can bring it up and everybody will brainstorm. But I find my case managers taking care of each other too.
That's
so
awesome.
They know resources and help each other if they know somebody's going through something with their mother. Maybe they would cover an appointment with them on our case so
Wow.
that they could be with their mother
Yeah.
or things like that. We just, we get it done.
It's awesome that you've been able to maintain that kind of family kind of atmosphere, but still function with boundaries and things of that sort. And because that's the really cool balance of it all, when people can have that flexibility in their schedules and, and still be able to be present with family, because that's number one. I think we all learned that, speaking of COVID, we all learned how important it is to be able to be present with your family. So shifting a little bit, we, talking about taking care of other people, but tell us a little bit about how do you take care of Ellen? Because, I see you out and about at all kinds of events, and, we both are Goldman Sachs alums, so I see you at Goldman Sachs stuff. You hold networking events. You're always doing so. How does Ellen take care of Ellen?
Yeah. Which in this world, and I know you know this, it's really important to do. And again, it's those boundaries. It's creating that time to be able to step back. And there are times where it's not so easy to do because you can't plan on the client emergency.
Yeah.
And you need to be there for them. And I've been very lucky with some great staff. And, so now we work as a team, like I said, and I have people in place that I know I can walk away and they can take care of it. So I've built a team that's really skilled. And so when I can carve out some time, I carve out time. And I'm really good at compartmentalizing too. So if I need to just park something to the side, I can do that. But, I guess there's this piece where you are always worrying just as a business owner.
Oh, yeah.
Lots of details to track. And then the bigger you get as an organization, the more things you need to keep track of.
Yeah.
So again, it's getting the right people to help you keep track of it.
Yeah.
It might be automating some things, collecting data and spreadsheets or through your CRM. And so you're not doing the spreadsheets anymore. And so we've learned over time, it's been a long, long process, 15 years of tweaking and process, driving the process and rewriting the process because now it's something completely new because you're a bigger organization.
And those transitions definitely happen, because there's, at the core of it, running a business is running a business. But as you grow, and like you talked about the case management team meeting and you not being a part of that meeting necessarily, or sometimes you may be, sometimes you may not, but having your company grow to the point where you're not in every meeting, you're not the lead in every meeting and all those kinds of things. It really is a testament to your ability to learn and step back and also empower other people. So with all of that said, clearly, in my opinion, I feel like you're one of those people that just innately gets it, right? So you and I both did Goldman. Like, what was your driving force behind getting involved in doing the Goldman Sachs program?
Well, a few years before they came to Baltimore, I had a colleague in my professional organization out in Chicago, and we were working on a case together, and she said, "Have you ever heard of this Goldman Sachs program?" And I said, "No, tell me about it." And she said, "If you ever have the chance, ever, do it." And she was traveling quite a distance from where she lived to do it, and just got so much out of it. And while she was in that cohort, we would talk about it, and she would say, "Oh, we're working on this, and this is really neat, a perspective that they gave." And I had an aha moment. And then it was a couple years later that I saw it was coming to Baltimore.
Wow.
So I got really excited. I applied that day and, went through the interview process and was able to get in. So I was cohort 6, which was beginning of the year in 2019. So, it was
so right before COVID.
Right before COVID. And
Wow.
I'm glad that we did, because I know after that they went virtual.
Yeah, I can't imagine doing Goldman virtual. I mean, I'm sure they did an amazing job to make it so that you really did connect with folks and everything. But I just like the moments grabbing lunch together, those like really special moments where the relationships are built amongst the cohort is a big part of the process. It's not just the information,
Right.
It's the relationships that you build.
It really is.
And that was also another space for me where I realized that I can talk to BJ, who owns a security company, and get feedback and ideas and thoughts. And I can talk to Nisha, who owns a salon, and you know what I mean? But we can collaborate and talk through things. And they brought ideas to my head where I was like, oh, I hadn't thought about that. Or Sean and Real. I mean, there's so many people and different collaborations that we've been able to do since being a part of that program. It is a dynamic program. And so one of the big things that I know they really impress upon us is how we think about our role in our business. So like, as you've grown, and as you're not being that case manager on the road all the time, like how has your view of how you sit within your organization? One of our colleagues, Kim, we did an episode, I guess about a month or so ago. She talks about sitting in the balcony and the importance of entrepreneurs and leaders taking time to sit in the balcony. Like, what was your journey of how you got to a point where you sat in the balcony? And also, and I know especially with a lot of our case managers and a lot of our behavioral health entrepreneurs, as they grow, letting go of their caseload is not an easy thing from an emotional perspective, because that's what you've been doing, from a financial perspective, because oftentimes people build their salary around who they actually see, and their billable hours is how they pay themselves. So like, what was that transition like of moving away from case management and really sitting in the balcony as the head of this growing organization?
Yeah, it was a process. It was over time.
Okay.
So it wasn't like I just handed over an entire caseload to somebody else. It really was, let me take you, introduce you to the family. But then a lot of times families had anxiety about a case manager changing because they work with me and
Makes
only
sense.
me. So
And you're the owner.
And I'm the
so
owner.
it's just like, I don't want someone else.
yeah. So I was the clinical supervisor. I was the backup if my
Okay.
care manager couldn't do it. So I was still very involved, and I, impressed to the client that I'm not going anywhere.
Yeah.
I just, have some other roles in the organization that I need to fill. And, I finally built that leadership team. It was me, and of course, Michelle kind of rose up in the rank and took stuff over, but I felt like I was delegating the stuff was coming to me faster than I could possibly delegate. But now I have somebody who heads up marketing, have somebody who heads up the educational advocacy division, which is a new division that we started a few years ago, advocating for special needs kids in the school system.
Wow.
And, you know, and then we would see them as they become adults and need to figure out what their adult life was going to look like. But I was able to hand off things at a different level, and, you know, have a clinical supervisor who's going to be taking over that role. I do find that I think I'm finally there. And then somebody retires and you get sucked back into the vortex.
100%.
So I find it hard to consistently stay out, but I'm staying out for longer periods of time. And when I get back in, it's less.
Okay.
But I feel like that's an important part, not only to keep my clinical skills in check, be able to just get the feel, the litmus test of what my clients are going through, what my care managers are going through, and really keep my eye on what's going on, kind of my finger on the pulse, so to speak. So, you know, I have been doing less and less of the hands-on, everyday case management because I was finding that was super hard to do.
Yeah.
Really hard when you're doing a podcast or you're at a marketing event or you're hosting something and then you have a client emergency and you need to get to the hospital.
Yeah.
So you can't plan on those emergencies, and I just felt that it was getting more difficult to do both. So I'm a backup, but I have a great team who rises to the challenge every time.
That is awesome. That's awesome. And you have expanded. So you're not just in the space of working with adults and seniors. You're working with young kids all the way through. So you really are hitting all the generations. What would you say what would you say is a misconception or something that people don't understand about this work that you do?
Yeah. So I think there's a lot of misinformation out there that people, you know, come to us with preconceived ideas of what it's going to look like for mom. And they'll say, well, my cousin in Ohio's neighbor's uncle did it this way. Or they think Medicare is going to pay for assisted living, and it doesn't. So there's a lot of misinformation that people are operating on. So one of our biggest roles is just sheer education, helping the families understand, helping the adult children, like educating them up to the same level so we're speaking the same language. Because even though well-intended, sometimes they have vastly different ideas of what should be happening with mom as she ages. And so coming in as that kind of objective third party and giving them information that empowers them to make good decisions is really a big part of our role. Helping them understand what are the options, why you might pick one over another, how do you pay for it, can we pay for it, and those kinds of things. So I think we're not just like helping old people, which some people think that's what we do. We're helping people throughout the life care continuum. And I think one of the things that sets us apart is that our team comes from different areas of expertise. We have nurses, so if something's medically complex, we can pull a nurse in. We have social workers, so if they're dealing with mental health issues or substance abuse issues, or they're trying to navigate benefits, they might be the one for that. We have an educational advocate, so people that come from the education system. We have a neuropsychologist and an educational law attorney who's been doing this work for 30 years. And so, you know, it looks like we do a whole lot of stuff. If you look at our website, we have a wide variety of services, but you're not going to need them all. So think of it as a menu that you're pulling from. But we have a particular staff member with that area of expertise.
So let me ask this. And like I said, I come from a case management background. I've worked for the coordinating center. I worked at Hopkins in community psych. Like I've been in the space. But your model is different. It's not what's the word? It's not the stereotypical, you know, case management environment. Like you really have thought outside the box of what case management can look like. And oftentimes, like what you were describing, where you have the RN and the social worker and the attorney and all these different people taking a collaborative approach to working with a particular family. Where did that model come from?
Well, I saw that there was a need for those types of services. The families didn't know what they didn't know, and they felt lost without resources. And they might work with a social worker or a nurse that's a discharge planner in a hospital, but their role is to get them ready to walk out the door. They're not helping them in community.
Yeah, they work in silos.
They work in silos.
Yeah.
And that's what I love about my job. It is different every day, and there are no silos. You've got everything out there to pull from, so you can be creative and figure out, what does this particular person need? And we're making sure our role is to keep them out of the hospital. So we want to make sure that they have their medications on hand once they've been discharged. Can they get to the primary care for that 2-week checkup? And a lot of times that's where things fall apart, because there's not somebody to carry it on once they leave the 4 walls of the hospital.
So basically, to summarize your answer, you created this model based on looking at the needs of the community. So it's not like you were replicating something else, which is what I was getting at. Like, you have decided to take a very different approach to this, which is phenomenal. So I just want to highlight that. And that's one of the things that I love about you, because I'm like, how did you? Well, you know, we did this and we did that and we looked at this. No, dude. Ellen was like, we need an attorney. Ellen was like, okay, I do the clinical side, but I need an RN. Like, so you really created this model of case management.
So I had some people that went before me that were doing some of this, but what I found when I started, most of the people doing it were sole practitioners. It was just them, and they were limited by their 40 hours a week or their own scenario.
And their knowledge set. And that's the thing that I think is so brilliant about the organization that you've created, because most case management organizations are like sole proprietorship type of organizations, or they may have 1 or 2 clinicians and stuff, and they do amazing work.
Right.
So it's not that I'm saying anything negative in any way, shape, or form. But I just think that it's so important to highlight, at least for me, I want to highlight the fact that you have taken something and expanded in such a different way. And so, like, when you're talking to that attorney, like, attorneys probably don't go into law school thinking that they're going to work for a case management organization. So bringing all these people together that probably have not worked with people from those different environments. Like, attorneys may not have worked with social workers and RNs or, you know, those kinds of things. Like, bringing all those people together and creating such a collaborative environment is absolutely brilliant. I love it. So I just needed to say that.
Thank you.
So when you go back and you think about 15 years ago, or I would even say, let's go back 20 years ago, when this may have just sort of started being this floating idea of, I could do this. What would you say to that, Ellen, now? Like, is there anything where you would want to say, okay, if we did this again, don't do that?
Probably know your numbers.
Okay.
Know them well. Understand it. Understand what a P&L is. Understand, profit and loss statement, and what it's telling you. These are the metrics that you need to be sustainable and viable. And, I'll share that during COVID, when I was acquiring practices, and then I needed office space, and then we had to get computers for everybody and desks for everybody. I got over my skis. I was best income ever, but the cash flow was really, really, really tight. So you got to know your numbers and be able to understand so you can avert a crisis. And that's, you're going to have those ebbs and flows when you're a growing organization, but don't get over your skis.
Don't get over your skis. I like that. I haven't done a lot of skiing, but I get what you're saying.
Like, don't put the cart before the horse.
Yes.
You got to plan it out, and you can't do everything at once. The tendency is there's so much opportunity. You want to do it all and you don't want to say no. It's like you've got to be more strategic. You've got to think about what's the priority. And then I think the other thing that I can offer is be really good at writing your processes.
Oh, I love it.
Can
Can you say that again for those that didn't hear it?
Be really good at writing your processes. My experience was it was just me and I was doing everything and you're running. You're going. And before you
Your
know
IT,
it.
your accounting, your
Exactly.
janitorial, your maintenance.
Exactly. And next thing you know, you're a big organization. Everybody's saying, what do we do?
Or worse, Ellen, the computer won't turn on.
Right.
Ellen, I need Ellen, and that
Exactly.
because you haven't put a process in place of what to do if this isn't working or what to do if that happens and things of that sort.
Right.
So I love that you talk about putting process in place because I see so often as a consultant, organizations, I had a woman literally, I'll never forget it. She said that she had like a whole shift of staff quit. And when we were sitting and talking through it, she was like, I don't know what's wrong with these people and this, that, and the other. And I'm just like, whew, okay. She may not like me after this comment. And my daddy used to say it all the time, the whole world can't be wrong. If you have a whole team of people quit on you, you're the problem, not them. And oftentimes it's because people don't understand how to do certain things. And so when you're giving them feedback, it's that trial by fire kind of feedback where it's like, no, that's not how you're supposed to do it. But then that's hard, to live in that space. We've all had that boss that doesn't tell you anything, but then when you screw up, they're ready to write you up. I had a woman that I used to work with when I worked at the state. Joanne was absolutely amazing. And she has like the best, most commanding presence, like in a great way, and this amazing voice. And she's very purposeful with her words. And she said to me one day, she said, Angela, you must tool them, train them, and then hold them accountable.
Oh, great advice.
And I was just like, that's good. And it's like, it was amazing. And tooling them and training them, that's developing process. That's developing manuals and policies and procedures and all that stuff. Because if you haven't done that, then you have no business trying to hold people accountable. And it's so important. So I love, love, love that you said that. So going all the way back to the beginning, you talked about how you really didn't want necessarily to have all these staff working for you and all that stuff. And clearly the universe laughed in your face, right? So tell us a little bit, like, what are some things that you had to learn or just innately had to do as a leader to sort of grow yourself as a leader? Like, I know you said you did the Goldman program and you've had mentors. Like, are there any other things that you would say to an entrepreneur as it relates to being a leader? Because I think sometimes people miss that, where they become an entrepreneur and they're doing really great work and they manage themselves and they're amazing. But that transition to managing others and or leading other managers and leading other leaders, as you sort of grow in as an entrepreneur, you also have to grow as a leader. Tell us a little bit about your journey with that.
Yeah, so I'm a big one for lifelong learning. So I'm always, whether it's a webinar or a conference, reading, I try to always just take some nuggets away whenever I'm doing that and try to apply it, which is hard when you can read it and you can take notes on it, but then to actually put it in practice. And I try to, I guess one of the most important things you could do is spend the time to transfer that knowledge to others. So you could use it and learn it, but then to transfer it to other people so that it can go throughout the whole organization. And I think that really helps with kind of everybody heading towards the same goal, have the same vision, the same mission, and that everybody's working towards taking care of our clients and doing the right thing.
Yeah. That was actually something that was really important in the Goldman process, because I just did Goldman last year. So I already had a team and stuff like that or what have you. And so I remember asking, like, what's the best way that you all have seen for people who have a team, have a leadership team, to bring this information into the organization? And some of the best advice I've gotten, similar to what you're saying, was like, in essence, my team did Goldman with me, right? Like every week when I came in that following, because Thursdays was typically our Goldman day. And at CMAG, Fridays, that's our leadership meeting, Friday mornings. So I would just talk about those things, train them on things that I had learned, understanding the difference between PR versus marketing versus sales, or understanding what the P&L looks like versus the balance sheet and where those numbers come from. Just all those different kinds of things to sort of bring that information to them. And I think sometimes we can make the mistake of thinking that when you sit in the balcony, that information should stay with you. And that's the polar opposite actually should happen. Mm-hmm. You really need to make sure that you're sharing that information with your entire team, because it's hard to implement something if they don't understand not just the information, but why.
Right.
You know what I mean? How did we even get to this conclusion that this is what we're supposed to do?
Yeah.
Or why is this even important? Why do we have to collect data? Like, I don't understand. We all get that question.
Yeah.
So, again, you've done such a phenomenal work. There's such phenomenal work over the last 15 years. And you've acquired other businesses. You've grown your services. You've grown your staff. What's next? What else are you guys? Because I know, I mean, we know each other, but we don't know each other super well. But I know there's something up Ellen's sleeve. Like what? So what do you have going on?
Well, I have gotten certification, the WeBank certification,
Mm-hmm.
which is kind of like the rubber stamp to be able to do some government contracting,
Mm-hmm.
some corporate contracting. So I'm at the very beginning stages, looking, with some larger organizations where we can partner and provide our skill set to help them. And we've always done a lot of dementia training, but there seems to be a bigger and bigger demand for that. So we've been doing dementia training for home care companies, assisted livings, family caregivers, first responders, people who are like out there in the community working with people that have dementia, but needing some tools to figure out how to manage behaviors and how to understand what they're trying to communicate to me, because they don't communicate in the typical way. So we're finding other ways to be able to do that for more and more people.
That is amazing. That is absolutely amazing. So in entrepreneurship, we often talk about this word, success. And it's a moving target, right? It's not like, oh, I am successful. Like anyone that's just like, oh, I'm I'm just like, really? Because I always wonder, like, how do you define it? And is it something, because you're constantly growing, you're constantly moving, you're constantly doing things. But like, how do you define success? And has that definition changed for you over the years?
Oh, definitely.
Okay.
I think I mentioned when I started, I was like, if I could just bill like 2 hours a day, I'd be doing great. So I've gotten a little beyond that.
Couple more hours a day.
A few more hours. But, now we really have dialed in with the metrics and the data and information like that, which helps inform us to make more strategic decisions.
Yeah.
But more importantly, it's really about the people. It's refining our processes, tooling, mentoring, accountability with the staff, so that no matter what care manager you get, you're going to have the same experience. It's like about that customer journey and how we're supporting the client and their family. It's really about them and taking care of them. One of my goals, successful goals, are longevity of my staff.
That's
having them happy there so they want to take care of the clients, giving them time and space to take care of them.
And longevity is a challenge, especially with the younger generations, because they typically don't stay in the same organization for a long time. So being able to develop that kind of longevity, that's a real skill in itself. And it's a beautiful thing because it means you've created something where people really do want to stay because they see that they can grow in the organization and things of that sort. So creating that's amazing. That's absolutely amazing. Anything else? What else?
I think the other thing is just, for me, success would be having that leadership team completed. Still have a couple of hires to do, and then being able to have it kind of run without me touching it day to day. More of the orchestration.
Yeah.
Allow me to step back and think about what is next. What's the next big thing that we're going to tackle, and just having that consistency, so that I know that I can. What's that thing called? Oh, a vacation.
Vacation, that thing? Yeah, those things, right. And a vacation that does not equal sitting on the beach with a laptop.
Exactly.
Like a for real vacation, because it's not easy to do. So when you start thinking about, and you talked about like the work that you've been doing and the success in that definition, what kind of legacy, like when you think about legacy, like what kind of legacy do you want to leave as it relates to, how families feel about interacting with you, how staff feel about interacting or being a part of your organization, and even like the legacy of the organization itself, like in it carrying on. I jokingly say that, because people always ask, like, are you, what's your end game? Like, that's like the big thing. Like, what's your end game? And I'm like, I'm still building this thing. Like, I'm not ready to really get there. But I always jokingly say that I want to have like that boardroom where you have the portrait of the founders. And it's like the portrait of Kathy and I sitting there. It's like for me, the idea of CMAG continuing even after I'm not a part of it and setting it up in a way that that's possible. For me, that's what legacy really stands for. So what does legacy look like for you?
I think it's very similar for me. I want to leave a strong organization that can carry on even long after I'm done. I'm like you, I'm still building this thing and enjoying it.
Yeah.
And I feel like I'll be involved in some way for a really long time. But eventually, I'll step out, and I want it to carry on to be able to do what we do the best, and to be able to do it for maybe even more people.
So to sort of wrap all this up, if I were to say, you know what, I really would love to get into this space, or not even just necessarily the type of work that the Options Group does, what would be some sort of words of wisdom to a young entrepreneur with some great ideas of a business that they want to start, and because they have seen those gaps in service provision, or want to break down those silos, and because it clearly didn't happen overnight for you to sort of do this and to create this thing. So what would be maybe some words that you would want to share with someone to say, like, think through A, B, and C?
Yeah. I think, you see a lot of it on social media where somebody just comes out of college and gets a side hustle, and they have a business.
and now they're a millionaire.
Yeah. And I think that's somewhat unrealistic.
Yeah.
I think the best thing that I did was have 20 years of solid experience working for somebody else doing this type of work. So I had people that went before me, and mentors, and people that shared resources with me, and I got to see all kinds of situations. And so I learned. And then, like I mentioned before, the lifelong learning, I think, is really important. But I was good technically at what I did, but I didn't have a business degree. So I had to learn a lot of that as I started my own business. And, there are resources out there like SCORE and other places that can give you free advice or support. And, things like the Goldman Sachs program where, you're around people that have done it, and you also are around people who can teach you how to do it.
Yeah.
And I think it's just really smart to not do it in a vacuum and utilize the resources, ask for help. And my biggest takeaway is just collaboration with other really smart business owners.
I think that's a really good point, and not just other business owners that are in the same space that you're in, but, working with, you're excited because you hit $100,000 this year, but actually sitting at dinner with someone who just hit 15 million, you know what I mean? And not feeling intimidated by that, because one thing I know I've learned is that people enjoy talking about their journey. And I think that's one of the most fun parts of this podcast process, is that I get to sit down with brilliant people who have done this work and just provide an opportunity to talk about their journey and what this has looked like, because that's half the battle. I 100% agree that you have to learn your craft. And I think that that's something that, and I don't want to get in trouble for being ageist, but sometimes I think that some of our younger people are a little bit quicker to want to jump before they've spent time working under other people. And in some ways that's really cool, and it's definitely very admirable to feel that confident, but also recognizing that there's a lot of value to cutting your teeth on someone else's dime, and figuring out what works and what doesn't work when you have that faithful check coming into your into your bank account every 2 weeks, and learning during that space and then transferring it over. This has been absolutely phenomenal. I've learned a lot. I'm sure people listening are learning a lot. So the last and most final thing is, how would people get in contact with you? I mean, you guys provide such amazing services and supports to families. While we've been focusing on the entrepreneur side of this, I definitely want to make sure that people understand how to find you, how to connect with your organization, and all the great work that you guys are doing. So if you could tell us how that works, that would be awesome.
Thank you. Yes, we provide services in Maryland, Delaware, Pennsylvania, Virginia, and D.C. Just call the main number, 410-667-0266. And our intake person will give you some information and gather some information. And then either Steve or I will be the ones to give you a 30-minute free consult. Oh, wow. And really talk about, so we can understand what the situation is, and then help share how we can help solve the problems. And then families can decide at that point if they want to engage services, and then we start right away. If they're looking outside of that area, they can go to the professional organization, which is called the Aging Life Care Association, aginglifecare.org.
Okay.
And you can go in there and put in your zip code, and it will come up with people who are certified and be able to help you in your geographic region.
That is absolutely phenomenal. And you still have someone answering the phone.
Yes.
You've not gone to the virtual assistant like so many people are going towards. But
no,
like you said, when someone's in crisis, they don't want to talk to a virtual assistant and wait 20 minutes for someone to call back. Right. They need a live human. And so keeping those small things is so important, not letting go of those little small touches that are important to support families. Well, again, this has absolutely been phenomenal. I already in my brain have other ideas of things that I would love to talk about. So don't get surprised if you get that email from me. But again, Ellen, this has been wonderful. Thank you so much for your time. Thanks for joining us. Everybody look forward to, having you join us for other great conversations with other great leaders. Thank you so much for your time. And thank you, everybody, for listening in to Impact Innovations.
Thank you, Angela.
Thank you for listening. Join us next time for more Impact Innovations.